Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, January 24th, 2024, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host of the most, Will Buchanan. Of course, with How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we do get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast. We do try to maintain journalistic integrity by researching the most respected websites that actually do the research and have awards to actually prove what they back up. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, news media, whatever extreme left or extreme right that you may watch. We deliver the facts and only the facts and go from there. We do try to maintain our language, but sometimes words do fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, but viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, I guess we're going to start with some good news. Well, I guess you can call it good news / bad news.
Breaking news set to shake up the Republican primary and the race for the White House. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis just announcing that he will drop out of the race in a video posted on the platform X. It comes 2 days before the first in the nation primary in New Hampshire.
I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign.
Today's news makes the Republican primary effectively a two-person race now, with the frontrunner, former President Trump, facing off against his former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley. Polls show her trailing Trump by double digits in New Hampshire. DeSantis also endorsing former President Trump instead of Haley in today's announcement. Let's go straight out to NBC's Dasha Burns.
All right, so let's just cut it right there because that's really all we need to know. Trump 2.0 is what I call him. Dictator Governor Ron DeSantis did drop out of the presidential race last week, basically because he had no shot. I mean, you would think a person that got a Don't Say Gay bill passed through his state, you would think the same person that dismantled African American AP history, you would think the same person that got books banned in his state, and took on Walt Disney's company would be a lot more popular person. Only in his mind. Again, he was trailing Trump for the longest time. He did lead at least for second place for a little while. But as you can tell, and of course, whoever was his debate manager who let him do a debate with California Governor Gavin Newsom, that was a mistake. But it was fairly obvious in each of the three Republican debates this man was in, he simply could not debate. He was pretty much a Fox News narrative talking point and sounded like an idiot. It's only amazing he didn't actually calculate higher with conservatives. But now it comes down, like I said before, guys, Trump at this point, even though he is facing indictments, even though he's facing many cases, even though he is facing jail time, was able to think about this, guys. Whenever you ever heard this in history, a person with that kind of record still won every poll he was in by double digits. It is unheard of for a guy of that low of caliber can outdo 7 other people and still at this point, and I say at this point because we're coming up on the first primary, the New Hampshire primary is coming up. But the simple fact of the matter is this man could still get the Republican presidential nomination and still somehow keep all his cases at bay. It's that real. So now that we've established that nobody's going to beat Trump, what's next? The race for VP. That's all it is. It's the race for VP. But Trump is already, like I said before, guys, the Republican Party has already made their decision about Trump. And even more so, there are folks who are ready to be his VP. He won't take America's creepiest Christian, Mike Pence, because Mike Pence actually did the right thing for once. So he wants a yes man. He wants somebody who's going to kiss his acne-riddled tuchus all the way to the VP seat. So who do you start with first? You start with America's Uncle Tom, failed Republican presidential candidate who tried to get engaged because people were wondering whether or not he was straight or gay, Tim Scott.
Good gentleman, and he's a wonderful friend. And remember, he's, I'm running against somebody from his state, so it's not that easy to do. I mean, she is running from the state of South Carolina, which, by the way, where I'm leading her by over 50 points, so I don't know what the hell kind of a job she did, but in South Carolina. But he's a senator from South Carolina. He's a fantastic man, Tim Scott.
Hello, New Hampshire! Oh, yeah. Let me see. Is this Donald Trump country? Oh, yeah. Let me see. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You know, we love you, thank you. Let me say, we need a president who will close our southern border today. We need Donald Trump. We need a president. We need a president who will unite our country. We need Donald Trump. We need a president who will protect your Social Security and my mama's Social Security. We need Donald Trump. We need a president today who will stop the crime and recklessness in the streets. We need a president who will restore law and order. We need Donald Trump. Oh, we need a president who will lower our taxes and not raise our taxes. We need a president like Donald Trump. We need a president who understands the American people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. We need a president our foreign adversaries are afraid of.
Okay, I gotta stop it there because again, y'all, for those that don't know, that is the biggest load of Sambo dancing I have ever seen from a black person. I mean, for the longest time, I really thought Donald Trump's hand was really up Tim Scott's ass. Where's my Negro? Where's my Negro? Bring my Negro to the podium. Because that's exactly what he did. Tim Scott showed just about as much school spirit as if he was getting a prostate exam. We need Donald Trump. You need Donald Trump as a president. I'm like, dude, if that was your excited face, I hate to see your constipated face. I'm pretty sure they look the same. But the point I'm getting at is this is all a big race to see who's the VP. Tim Scott obviously is throwing his hat in the ring. I mean, beyond a shadow of a doubt. And this is a man who, for lack of better words, guys, was actually not endorsed by Donald Trump. He was actually endorsed by Nikki Haley. But again, when it was brought to his attention, this is what he said.
Endorsed former President Donald Trump on Friday, even though you were appointed to the Senate in the first place by Nikki Haley. who was your governor at the time. She is still very much in this race. Why did you endorse Donald Trump and not Nikki Haley?
You know, it comes right down to, what does America need for the next president? It would be 4 more years of Donald Trump. And why do I say that? I say that because I worked with President Trump on really important issues impacting American voters and American families. We worked together. I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017, the largest tax decrease in American history. Think about uniting this country. He gave the highest level of funding for historically Black colleges and universities in the history of the country. We have the most inclusive economy, 7 million new jobs, the lowest unemployment rates for African Americans, Hispanics, Asians, a 70-year low for women, and a 50-year low for the majority population. That, during the Trump years, we also didn't have an invasion of Ukraine. Hamas was not burning, decapitating, killing kids and raping women in Israel. We had a stronger economy, a healthy military, and a safer world. When I compare and contrast, the only conclusion is Donald Trump.
Senator, Nikki Haley said yesterday in New Hampshire that she was disappointed. Did you call her beforehand, give her a heads up? Have you talked to her since?
We had texted several times since I got out the race. So we've had a conversation at least once. We've had multiple texts back and forth. But here's the question. I'm not asking a question about who's from my home state. I'm not asking a question who would be is a good person or a better person. I think President Donald Trump is a strong president, will be a strong president again, and will have the kind of accomplishments that will unite this nation around economic opportunity.
So I got to stop it there, because number one, he didn't answer the question. That why did you pick? Keep in mind, Tim Scott was endorsed to be the senator by Nikki Haley, who was governor of South Carolina at the time. Again, the question remains, why did you endorse Donald Trump instead of the person that basically endorsed you to become a senator of South Carolina? The answer was simple, Tim. The answer was simple, Uncle Tom. All you had to say was what we all thought. You want the VP. You want to be in the White House by any means necessary, even if it means you have to attach yourself to literally the dirtiest Dorito outside of the ground that you can find. You didn't care. I mean, the same person you talked about, that you were the prime person to beat Donald Trump when you were running as a candidate, you are now saying that he's the best choice for president. And you didn't even register on the radar as a possible VP, as a possible pick. But now that Donald Trump's all but settled, again, the race for second continues. And at the same time, the lies he told, I mean, okay, I don't mean to stay on this all day, but the lies he told. I mean, first and foremost, those HBCUs, which I never forgave those administrators for going to Trump for that ridiculous photo op, for that $100 million funding that never came. By the way, it never came. It was never given to them. That was just a photo op for Trump to stand with Black people and say, I've done something for you, Negroes. But then again, I've done nothing for you. Then he talked about the tax cuts, which again, you would think for somebody that's running as VP, you don't want to sign on and say, hey, the tax cuts that we did under President Trump, I helped write those. If I was your campaign manager, I would have told you honestly to shut the frack up, because those tax cuts that you talk about quadrupled the national debt faster than any presidential administration in history. The economy tanked. The only people that benefited from those tax cuts were rich people and corporations. The American taxpayer got screwed and still is getting screwed from those tax cuts. Then he talked about low employment records for minorities. Again, I hate to break it to you, that was done by the previous administration that he's riding the coattails off of. So I can keep going on and on with Tim Scott about how everything he's saying that he's trying to push forward is literally a crock of shit. But at the same time, he's going for second. Republicans need a person of color. if it's not going to be Nikki Haley, because Nikki Haley doesn't want to be VP. Nikki Haley wants the presidency. At the same time, she is still the same one saying she can beat Trump. Well, here's the problem when you're facing a guy like Trump, especially again, if you're Nikki Haley, because if you're Nikki Haley, you kind of have a problem. And what I mean by that problem is, well, you have a history problem. Yes, when someone asks you, what did the Civil War start with? And you couldn't even answer that question, only to turn around and backtrack. Now, history repeats itself. And now you're facing a guy like Trump who has no problem saying, well, we've all been saying about Nikki Haley. That's not your real name.
We're not a racist country, Brian. We've never been a racist country. Our goal is to make sure that today is better than yesterday.
That is Nikki Haley yesterday saying America has never been a racist country. Less than 10 seconds later, in that same answer, here's what she said also.
I know I faced racism when I was growing up, but I can tell you today is a lot better than it was then.
12 hours after that, the current frontrunner for the party's nomination, Donald Trump, posted this on his social media platform, quote, anyone listening to Nikki Nimrata Haley's whacked out speech last night, those are his words, would think that she won the Iowa primary. Notably, Trump misspelled her name, her given name, and he posted that as well.
Well, a week ago, Trump amplified a post that insinuated Haley was ineligible to run because her parents were not citizens at the time of her birth. That, of course, is false. Unequivocally, Haley was born in South Carolina. But it's the dog whistles like this that are straight out of Trump's playbook. For years, he was full-on birther, probably still is, peddling the lie over and over that President Obama was not born in the U.S. and using his middle name for specific effect.
President Barack Hussein Obama.
It's no surprise that Joe Donnelly is holding a rally this weekend with Barack H. Obama. President Barack Hussein Obama. Barack Hussein Obama. Crooked Joe Biden and his boss, Barack Hussein Obama, did this to us.
Let's bring back our team, Scott Jennings, Natasha.
Now, I'm stopping it right there just because, again, this is what Trump does. Nikki Haley could have been different. Could have been. But she can't even get past a simple question. Is America a racist country? No, we've never been a racist country. 10 seconds later. Oh, well, I've endured my share of racism. Again, who are these campaign managers for these conservative politicians because they're asleep at the wheel? She couldn't even answer the obvious question. Is America a racist country? History would say so, concerning the fact that the many, many events that they're trying to whitewash out of our history books. Yeah, America does have a racist side. And here's the thing. Why can't she be honest about it? I'll tell you why. Because her voter base doesn't want to hear it. Her voter base doesn't want to hear America's racist. Her voter base doesn't want to hear that the greatest threat to American lives as we know it is napkins, also AKA white people. She doesn't want to sit there and tell the truth that Donald Trump only got in because disenfranchised citizens thought that voting for a failed reality star / con man was better than voting for a politician. They were wrong. In the same sense, Nikki Haley could have sat there and said the truth about our party. We failed. We promised you a load of goods if you let us into the House of Representatives. We've gained the House of Representatives. And for one full, almost nearly full term, they've done nothing. They've been in there now for almost going on 2 years and done nothing. Not a bill they've passed to help the American people. They've done nothing but litigation, creating these committees to look into Hunter Biden and now looking into everybody that's prosecuting Trump. Nikki Haley is much like every other Republican politician that is trying to be reelected. You have no leg to stand on to the American people for them to come back around and sit there and say, yes, I know your paycheck is small. I know everything. I know everything else is up. I know it's harder for you to get a car. I know it's harder for you to get a home. I know it's harder. Student loans are not going away. I know it's harder for you as a woman that you have no control over your body and you're pretty much reduced to a broodmare because we need more babies and we're going to force you to carry them in turn. But you have nothing else to say. That's Nikki Haley's problem. And again, going against Trump, and I knew this was going to happen because Trump, all he basically did, he sat there and said, wait a minute, Nick, I guarantee, I'm going to be honest with you, somebody told Trump that. Wait. Are you telling me, are you saying Nikki Haley, that's not her real name? She changed her name? Nimarata? Well, let's go with that. Nimarata. That's not her real name. You guys heard me say this on this podcast. Nikki Haley, that's not her real name. She changed her name. She was born here. She is an American citizen. Let's get that right. She was born here. Her parents did move to the U.S. She is an American citizen and decided one day to change her name to Nikki Haley. Why? Because her given name would have said what we've all known as people of color and minorities know. You'll have a harder time because of your name. But if you change it to something that's accepted and you have the right complexion, well, doors open. Nikki Haley is a shining example of that. And now Trump is going to run with that until the Republican primary. Nikki Haley can point out everything wrong about Trump. But the problem she's going to run into is that she has nothing positive to say about her party and what they've done. So here's the case she's going to have a problem with, and we're going to get into that momentarily. But at the same time, all Trump does is what he does. See, Trump has figured this out. He's a reality star. He knows drama equals ratings. He knows calling people names equals attention. He knows, even though he has no clue about anything else, he knows how to get people's attention. He's a con man. So imagine the first thing he says of the main things he's going to do when he becomes president. He wants to give America its first dome. And no, I cannot make that up.
And I will build an iron dome over our country, a state-of-the-art missile defense shield made in the USA. We do it for other countries. We help other countries. We don't do it for ourselves. We need it too. You know, Reagan proposed that many years ago, Star Wars. He proposed it many, many years ago, but at that time there was no technology. It was just like it looked good. But we have unbelievable technology. We shoot them down. I've seen so many things. I've seen shots that you wouldn't even believe. Missile launched. They go, missile launched, and you hear a bell go. I mean, I see this. It's so incredible. And these guys, these geniuses, they go, these are not muscle guys here. They're muscle guys up here, right? And they calmly walk to a seat. Ding, 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 ding. They've only got 17 seconds to figure this whole thing out, right? Boom. Okay. Missile launch. Pshing, boom. It's the most and we don't have it here, but we help other countries in having it. No, we're going to have the greatest Iron Dome. Let's call it Iron Dome. Anywhere in the world. And it's going to be manufactured. A lot of it right here in New Hampshire, actually, come to think of it.
And yes, an Iron Dome, because America doesn't have a missile defense system. And people were worried about Trump spilling secrets. Yeah, you should be, because that's what he wants to do. He wants to literally build a missile defense system similar to the Israeli missile defense system that was actually built by us there. And this is why Trump, and of course, he goes there and say, well, it's all going to be built in New Hampshire. It's all going to be built here. It's all going to be American made. And I keep telling you guys this. This man does not have a clue about what the frack he wants to do. He just knows a podium, a crowd, and cameras. And let me get the people excited. He's basically America's hype. He's America's whitest hype man. Honestly, really, truly. He has nothing of substance, but he can get people excited. And at the same time, I still ask myself, why do these individuals, and I say individuals because I don't want to call them idiots, but honestly, if you did vote for Trump, unless you're rich or a corporation, you are pretty much an idiot because you're voting against your own self-interest. But then I see voters like this, and then this is why I sit there and say education is vital.
In the U.S. Republican presidential nomination with a win in New Hampshire. Voters there are casting their ballots today in the nation's first primary of the season. But as you just saw, Nikki Haley has been barnstorming the state in an uphill battle against the former president. Earlier, CNN's John King spoke to voters about who they will be supporting and why.
Late morning off the dock. Gone maybe one day, maybe two or more.
That's where your fish comes from.
Andrew Konchak's job depends on the water and the weather.
Yeah, it's a little colder. Definitely a little colder. But, you get used to it.
Ilana Renee drops these gill nets overnight, pulls them out in the morning. Konchak was likely Trump, but looking at Ron DeSantis.
I'd have to, look into it more.
Now, time to choose.
I'm with Trump because he supports fishermen, and this obviously is my livelihood.
Loyal to Trump despite stuff that offends him.
I don't like the way that he speaks sometimes. Could be a little ignorant and rude.
Loyal to Trump despite a wife who backs Nikki Haley.
When you hang your Trump flag, what does she say?
She said I was ruining Christmas and wanted me to take it down. And she took it down and then I put it back up.
Pete Burdett's Haley sign is surrounded by snow now. Same spot as when we visited in September. Haley was a long shot then. Perhaps the only shot to stop Trump now.
She has Trump's attention.
Well, she certainly does. I think there's a very real opportunity for Nikki to squeak out a percentage point on top of Trump. And wouldn't that shake the rafters?
To Burdett, a no-brainer.
Who really can beat Biden? Who lost to Biden last time? Trump did.
The possibility is obvious, but so are the challenges. Trouble winning over Chris Christie voters because she says she would pardon Trump. Trouble winning over independents like Stanley Tremblay. Tremblay told us in September his disgust with both parties makes him a likely third-party voter in November.
16 ounces.
He could still help Haley Tuesday, but took a break from trivia night at his Nashua brewery to make clear he won't.
I know you're not a Trump fan. Fair?
Yep, fair.
If you came off the sidelines, you could help Nikki Haley.
I could.
But you don't see it as worth it. Why?
Because I don't feel like I trust her enough yet to be able to give her my vote.
Trump's resilience infuriates his critics. Yes, many supporters imitate his crude tactics and repeat his lies. But it's not that simple.
Who won the 2020 election?
Oh, it was Biden.
Debbie Katsanos is an accountant, voted for Bill Clinton twice, but is a Trump Republican now.
What are the one or two things you want the federal government to do ASAP?
Close the border and get this economy going.
Not a Joe Biden fan.
He's gotten big caught in a lot of lies. I didn't like him as a politician.
Got caught in a lot of lies.
Yep.
Trump's not known as the world's greatest truth teller.
No.
So why is it disqualifying for Biden, but it's okay for Trump?
I don't like politicians. And I don't think I don't think one term made him a politician because I don't think he plays the game.
That is the code Trump critics have yet to crack. His support among those who don't deny election results, those who don't like the drama, but do like the policy.
I know he'll fix the border. He'll work on the economy. With Trump is doing pretty good. I was able to save more.
The more north you go, the more New Hampshire voters on the Trump train. Devin McIver works construction, turning giant slabs of rock into gravel.
This is all the prep work before the busy season.
In 2008, an Obama voter, a Trump supporter since the 2016 primary here.
If he gets convicted of mishandling classified documents, you can go to jail for that.
Then he goes to jail. I guess he won't be president.
Yes, a Trump voter, but with eyes wide open.
He is definitely different. Sometimes he's not his own best friend, but he's different.
But that's what I was getting at when I was asking you about the price of admission. I mean, yeah, there's a lot extra that comes with it.
It's a show.
And that doesn't bother you?
No, because we have other branches of government to deal with it. They can keep him in line. He can't have everything he wants.
McIver makes $40,000 a year, just enough, he says, to take care of his family and save a little. Another Trump tax cut for his boss, he says, would be worth all the Trump chaos.
If the business climate is better towards people like him, I do better. Because if you hit him harder with taxes, that takes away from me.
Andrew Konchek shares that same blue-collar bottom line.
You think it's over if he wins here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Trump, he believes, will win the primary, win in November, and save his job.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop it right there because I wanted to show that. Really and truly, I wanted to show that because that not only is a handful of napkins and how they think, it's a lot of folks and how they think like that. That they say, oh, well, he's different. He's not a politician, but you're also not informed. If we keep taxing business, it's not gonna make me look good. That's where I go, oh God, that's Reaganomics all over again. I'm like, that's why I hated Ronald Reagan, because he systematically screwed up this. He set us up for failure so long ago. But the thing about it is, this is why I say education is vital, because if we really did more in the area of civics and US history and really told the truth, we would have better citizens. I'm just going to be honest about it. But the simple fact of the matter, the man sat there and said, if we stop taxing businesses less, they'll do more for people. No, because guess what? Those tax cuts that we talked about earlier, they were aimed at businesses. They were aimed at rich people. But did businesses hire more? No, they cut jobs. Did rich people actually pay more in taxes? No. People in the middle and lower class pay more taxes than rich people did. So the same things that he believes is going to happen didn't happen, even under those tax cuts. And I keep saying this all the time, and agree with me or disagree with me, it's completely up to you. To simply vote Republican, much less Donald Trump, you have to be kind of brain dead or really believe that because he's not a career politician, that he will do better for us. He won't. This is the same man, by the way, who needs the presidency to save his own ass. That's it. He does not care about the American people. He is literally wanting the presidency to avoid prison. That is it. Pretty much it. There is no if, ands, or buts behind it. That is the only reason he wants the presidency. And yet, his cult will still freaking believe it. Oh, Trump, we did great under Trump. Really? But you're on food stamps. Can't be doing that well. That's all I'm saying. But on the other side, I'm kind of mad at Biden. I'm kind of mad at Vice President Kamala Harris. Why? Because Biden and Kamala Harris are on the campaign trail about abortion rights. Now, again, I have said there and said it here on How the Frack We Got Here. We are definitely pro-choice because a woman should make choices about her body without any old white men telling her what she can and cannot do. A woman is not a broodmare. What I mean by that, guys, is she is more than just somebody that can create and deliver babies. She is a human being that should be respected as much. And again, if that happened to men, and I say this all the time, if men were put under the same restrictive body implications that women are facing, there'd be riots in the streets if it happened to men. But some people still believe that they have a right over a woman's body, and I say that's bullshit. But why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because I am glad that the president and Madam Vice President are taking this on. I am glad. The problem is because we are in a presidential nomination season, which means that in November we got to make a decision. Biden at this point needs to embrace other issues that are going on besides abortion. Because abortion could have been codified a long time ago. It could have been put in the Constitution that abortion is a right for every woman that cannot take it away from her. The fact that we leaned on Roe versus Wade for this long, and yet the Supreme Court, when it was overly conservative, decided to take it down, there was plenty of time to codify Roe versus Wade in the same sense that you codified same-sex marriages, because you couldn't tick off your LGBTQ base. You couldn't tick them off because it's a large base. And with large bases comes money. But at the same time, I hear it all the time. Well, what is Biden going to do for minorities? Well, I've said it once and I'll say it again when it could have been done. If I was Biden tomorrow, I would sit there and say, we're going to push with increasing the minimum wage. We're going to push with we're going to push for better health care. We're going to push for the immigration system to finally be fixed. We're going to push for the VA system to finally be fixed to help our veterans. We are going to push these things forward, but I cannot do it alone. As much as I would love to sit there and write executive orders on all of these things, I need a Congress that's going to do it with me. That's all. That's what I would. If I was the president, and I'm running for re-election, that's my campaign right there. Oh, and I would make marijuana legal. I would make marijuana legal and tax it. That's what 6 things I would love to do. At the same time, watch what happens. You've gained a lot of people's attention. At the same time, every time I see Biden and Kamala Harris talking, it seems to be about abortion. And I get it. You want to make it a sticking point because you want every woman to know, come election year, Republicans don't care about you. They don't. Republicans, every single one of them, voted to strike down Roe versus Wade. And again, I see the point. I've even said to friends of mine, outside of minorities, that the greatest ticked off group of voters out there is going to be women. And it's going to show this year how ticked off they are. Because I cannot imagine, and I say imagine because again, I'm not a woman, but if my rights were compromised by Republicans, why in the sheer hell would I vote for them again? That's basically shooting yourself in the foot and reloading. At the same time, guys, all I can sit there and say is we will see. But if I was Biden, there's other things that you can add to that agenda. There's nothing wrong with going progressive. Nothing wrong with it at all. Because you need that. Because progressive measures is what pushes the country forward. We cannot stick with moderate Democrat trying to be bipartisan with a Republican group that wants nothing to do with you and talks about it all the time on Fox News. But there's another reason why Biden and I guess you could say Governor Abbott are having issues. Well, because Governor Abbott decided that here in Texas, we don't care what the president says. We're going to elect razor wire across our borders because we are tired of immigrants crossing over. And razor wire actually led to the death of 3 immigrants that were trying to cross but could not get over to the other side safely. So Biden had issued an executive order to have the razor wire cut down. Greg Abbott said, this is Texas, come and make us. So Biden did what every other president does when a state doesn't listen. Litigation.
By a 5-4 decision allowing the U.S. Border Patrol to remove razor wire that was deployed by the state of Texas at the border. This is while the legal challenge to this dispute now plays out in court. Right, Joan?
That's right. And we've been waiting for this decision. This has been going on for several weeks where the state of Texas, Governor Abbott has been blocking the Biden administration Border Patrol at the border in Texas. You know, this is a long simmering immigration battle, and it arose from a lower court judges blocking the administration from taking down the razor wire. And today, by a 5-4 vote along largely ideological lines, the Supreme Court has allowed the Biden administration to continue having access to the border and to take down that razor wire. And let me tell you about the split, Boris and Brianna. Justices Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh all dissented from this order. Now, this all started in December, and since early January, the Biden administration had been urging the Supreme Court to intervene and to block the order that kept its border control agents from getting to a stretch of the border along the Rio Grande and to continue taking down this razor wire. And we know how contentious this has been, but it's also been the kind of situation that has caused a lot of injury and deaths in the middle of this.
And I'm just going to cut that off right there because that's the point I'm getting to, is that the border. Now, for the longest time, guys, we've all heard it, that immigrants are crossing. And that's all you hear. Because if you go to Fox News, oh, these immigrants could have been murderers, they could have been rapists, cartel members. We don't know, but they're coming across, they're coming across, they're getting these things, they're getting jobs, they're getting cars, they're getting homes. Sounds like to me they're doing all right. But the point I'm getting at is the negative is what you hear. You hear the whole thing of, oh, well, they're crossing over. Are we as a country at capacity? Because I'm wondering, but that's all you hear. You don't hear the whole thing of, well, immigrants are crossing over, but we don't, but it's like, but again, that's all you hear because certain demographics out there, white people, start fearing up. We want our borders closed. We don't want any more of them immigrants over in our country. Why? We're a nation of immigrants. We're a land of immigrants. And here's my thing about razor wire. Razor wire is just another word for wall. We wanted a wall because we want to keep immigrants out. And I've been saying that since that idiot Trump decided to say it. I said, you realize immigrants do more than climb walls to get in the country. They take flights. They fly into our country. They take cars into our country. The only ones you see on television are the ones that simply don't have the means. And those are the ones that cross the border. But instead of giving them food and shelter and immigration lawyers and judges and actually fixing the system, we go down there with rednecks, with trucks who stand on top of trucks to show unity with Texas. We see truckers blocking the road because they're standing in solidarity with Texas about putting a razor wire. You have officers from Florida going over to Texas to assist Border Patrol. Really? I mean, it's amazing when it comes to deterrence, we can quickly assemble them. But when it comes to assistance, it's red tape. That's the part that never makes any sense to me. But again, this is the same thing I always tell other people who are conservatives. You complain about the immigration system. Oh, it's backed up. It takes forever today. They're understaffed. There's not enough resources. Okay. Why aren't you bringing this up with Congress? Why aren't you sitting there saying, since you gave the IRS $80 million to ramp up staffing and to assist us, especially during tax refund time, why are you not doing the same thing with the Department of Immigration? Why are we not giving them more funding? Why are we not giving them more personnel and resources? Or better yet, why haven't we fixed the system? Because similar to the Veteran Affairs, Department of Veteran Affairs is the same way. It's amazing how many times Republicans and conservatives love to say, we love our troops, we support our troops, thank you for your service, sir. But the moment they're discharged, we'll go to the VA, they'll take care of you. Anybody that's ever been to the VA, especially former servicemen and women, will tell you, going to the VA is not fun. Going to the VA, where they're more liable to just try to get you through as a number, not a person, that they'll probably give you more pills than what you should have, or you cannot be seen at all. And the suicide rate is so freaking high. But you could fix the system. You would think for all the money the Department of Defense gets, that the Department of Veteran Affairs should get a slice of that pie. But again, Republicans complain, but the system isn't fixed. And if we're really being honest here, they don't want the system fixed. They don't, because a broken system gives them talking points. Because they'll talk about it all the time. Oh, our immigration system is broken. Our VA system is broken. Really? How do you fix it? I didn't think about that. You'll complain about something being broke, but you won't come up with solutions that'll be fixed. And don't get me wrong, when Democrats came up with DACA, it was at least something that immigrants could serve our country as a path to citizenship. Republicans shot that down, which I don't understand, because if they're willing to serve our country, why can they not have a path to citizenship? We're asking them to risk their lives to defend this country and its interests, but you don't want to give citizenship. Why? Oh, because you're racist. Because you have to admit that. This is why I sit here and say Republicans never have any answers, only complaints. They are the Karens of our political system, really and truly. And at the same time, they keep bringing up the border because the border, if they put border, immigrants, and threat all in the same sentence, the only thing you're dredging is fear. You dredge fear in the same sense about two countries that I can't talk about because Zuckerberg and everybody else likes to flag it. Or talking about the fact of the matter is that some people out there believe that said country that is being supported, that they're being wrong, while the other side has been vilified. Again, I can't say those two countries, but you know what I'm getting at right now. The point I'm making is that it's a narrative that's being put out there only for the disillusioned, or my personal favorite, the ones that view fits with them and question nothing else are the same ones saying shut down the border instead of fixing the problem. But speaking of fixing the problem, guys, you know what I sit there and say about, knowing the politicians and knowing who's running, getting to know their issues, things of that nature. How many times I've sat there and said, if you do not like the candidates that are running, maybe you should run yourself. Well, a former Capitol Police officer that was dealing with the napkins, would-be terrorists, on January 6th is doing just that.
Capitol police officers who defended the U.S. Capitol against rioters on January 6th is now running for Congress. And joining us to discuss his campaign is Harry Dunn, who resigned as a Capitol officer just last month. Harry, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking with us. We know that you're running as a Democrat to represent Maryland's 3rd congressional district, which includes several counties outside of Baltimore. First and foremost, just share with us why you decided that you wanted to run.
Thanks for having me on. It's always good to talk with you. But, ever since, it's been 3 years now since the whole January 6th attack on this nation. I've been working as hard as I can to seek out accountability and fight for justice and the preservation of our democracy and our Constitution. I've been doing that in a public capacity for the last 3 years. And I feel like I've done all that I can do in the role that I've been in as a Capitol Police officer in the furtherance of that fight. I love the saying that until there's nothing that can be done, there's always something that can be done. And it's no exaggeration to say that we are still under a threat of our democracy no longer existing. And once Mr. Sarbanes, who represents the 3rd District now, announced that he is not seeking election, that created a real opportunity for me to do even more. So I thought, what better way to continue my my mission of public service, which I've been doing the last 15 plus years. What better way to continue that than to seek election to represent the people of the 3rd District of Maryland.
You delivered, of course, some memorable testimony before the House committee, which investigated the attack and called the pro-Trump rioters terrorists. You've also written a book about your experiences from that day. Tell us what happened on January 6th that has really shaped your campaign.
I don't necessarily know if it's like shaped my campaign. I just, obviously on January 6th, I was a police officer and I did my job. I did just like so many brave men and women from the Capitol Police and Metropolitan Police. They did their jobs that day. But everything that I've done afterwards, I don't view it as me being a police officer. I just view it as me being an American citizen who cares about his country, who loves his country, who hates the direction that it is headed. And having a front row seat to the events of January 6th and serving at the place where members of Congress, Donald Trump subordinates are attempting to whitewash everything that happened, and just basically give him a free pass for it. Of being at the front seat, being at a servant at the table, watching them, it's kind of fueled me to this moment that that we're in right now. And if January 6th didn't happen, surely you and I aren't sitting here having this conversation at this moment. But January 6th did happen. And, there's an opportunity for me to have a seat at the table and not just watch now.
What do you feel is the biggest challenge Congress is facing right now?
Stability. Look how long we went without having a speaker elected. Look how long it took former Speaker McCarthy to get elected, and now current speaker that we have right now. There's no stability in Congress. I think people want to feel secure and they want a sense of stability, and we're not getting that in Congress right now. Whether for whatever reason, just in the talks of all the border security that's going on, that the House is currently fighting over with the Senate, having reached an agreement. What are we doing now? There's no stability in government. We're steadily passing stopgap spending bills, short bills instead of long-term funding. We can't even get that done. So I just think people want stability and security and representation in Congress. I've been a public servant, and that's, I may not be a public official, a career public official, but I'm a career public servant, and I've been doing that my whole life. And listening to people and giving them a voice is something that I think I'll be fantastic at.
If you are to be elected, what would you say is the first thing you want to accomplish?
Wow, there's so many things that I definitely want to tackle. I've been pounding the pavement since day one about mental health, and any and all legislation that we can form and bring to the forefront for mental health, reducing the stigma, making it more available and accessible for individuals who need it, is something that I definitely want to take care of. I also want to tackle prison reform. There's so many things that especially nowadays, since it appears to have the MAGA faction of the Republican Party's attention, they've been using the term hostages to refer to prisoners from January 6th. It seems like prison reform is something that they would be willing to talk about now. People of marginalized communities and colored communities have been screaming about the criminal justice reform that is needed and necessary for so long. But it's kind of a shame that they only want to bring light to it now that it's affecting the people that their supporters, their voters. But that's something I would love to sit down and have a talk about.
Harry Dunn, we thank you so much for your.
And you know what? That's a prime example of what I was saying. What I was saying was the entire time, guys, when you when you literally want to be an actor, there's plenty of sites out there that will help you figure out how you can run. A man who saw firsthand on January 6th is now running for his district in Maryland. And I hope he wins. I hope he wins, because anybody that's ever seen change fronthand is definitely going to see about getting it done. And his last name is Dunn, as my friend Navy pointed out. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover a tale of two different stories. I keep talking about the time. I keep talking, guys, as strikes pop up. I've never seen a strike that did not go in the way of workers. And we had another one that just ended.
This morning, they have a deal. Nearly 30,000 professors, librarians, and other workers at California State University set to walk off the job while demanding more pay and benefits have announced a tentative deal with Cal State, the largest public university system in the country. The union overnight saying, in case anyone forgot, strikes work. The union had demanded a 12% raise. The school saying that would cost more than $300 million per year across the school's 23 campuses.
I have served over 7,000 students who are now science educators, doctors, engineers, and nurses. Yet my salary does not keep up with the cost of living and inflation.
Terms of the tentative deal include a 5% pay hike for all faculty, raising the salary floor for the lowest paid workers, and increasing parental leave to 10 weeks. Across the country, teachers in Newton, Massachusetts, one of the biggest districts in the state, are on strike despite the threat of fines each day they're off the job.
We need to be able to settle a contract that allows us to give the kids of Newton, the students of Newton, what they need from an educational programming standpoint, and also give the educators of Newton the value and respect that they deserve for the work we do.
The past year has seen labor disputes erupt from the writers in Hollywood to auto workers in Detroit. Just yesterday, the head of the United Auto Workers raised concern about long-term pension payments, saying if the car companies can't afford them, the federal government should step in and cover the costs. Back at Cal State, union members will vote in the coming weeks.
And it's amazing. We keep saying this. We keep saying this on How the Frack We Got Here all the time. For the simple fact of the matter, guys, unions work. And it's amazing that at the end of every strike, what do we always hear? We need more pay. And if you're going to be working the California educational system, educators, again, hold a very special place in my heart. They should be paid, considering the fact of everything that they have to deal with. The fact that resources are not given to them, they're taken away from them, their budget is cut every year, and you're being asked to make miracles with the next generation. In other words, pay them what you owe them. But speaking of pay, this is also what I call, well, stupid. A school system in North Carolina made a mistake. What they've actually did was give bonuses, which was only supposed to go to new teachers. A $1,250,000 bonus was given to every teacher. 225 teachers received these bonus checks. But these bonuses were only intended for new teachers because, again, like every other school system, they would have a problem filling vacant positions. Teachers who have already been there were not qualified to receive these bonuses. Yet, all these teachers received it. So, instead of this school system eating the charge, they turned around and told these teachers, we need that money back. You can pay it in full or you can pay it in three-month installments. Now, here's the problem I have with this. Not only for the fact that you're going after educators because you're basically saying, oh, we made a mistake. We overpaid you, so you got to pay it back. No, I hate that. The reason why I hate that is because somebody in payroll, somebody in HR needs to own up to it. But do I think it's fair? Is it fair to turn around and give these educators money that is sorely needed, and then you're going to turn around and say, oh, we got to have that back? No, I think that's wrong. I think that you're going to cause more anguish. And next thing you know, you're going to have a lot of teachers, a lot of educators questioning what they're going to get next. Is the bonus really theirs? Or are you just going to turn around in a few weeks and say, hey, we made a mistake. We need that back. And again, that's wrong. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if they turn around and decided to strike about it, because we've seen how effective strikes really, truly are. I'm just saying. But moving right along in stories, guys, I love stories like this, but I hate the aftermath. What I mean by that is, and we hear this all the time, keep in mind, we just got off a cold snap where people were trying to find places to hunker down. People were trying to warm places to sleep because we were dealing with very low degree weather. Well, this one pastor in Ohio decided, you know what? I'm going to keep the doors of my church open 24/7 for those that don't have a home, so they have a warm place to sleep and a nice meal to eat. He kept the doors of his church, called Dad's Place, open 24/7. Which, again, you would think for a man of God that turned around and sat there and said, I'm going to make sure that you have a place to go to in Ohio if you're close to my location so you can be out the cold. So what happened? The city of Bryan decided to hit this church with 18 sanctions and fines for saying that the church keeping its doors open in a critical time was a violation of city ordinances. Are you effing kidding? And they try to say the thing it is, which kills me, is that, well, it's a safety concern. It's a fire safety concern. Well, I'm sorry. What was the city of Bryan, Ohio doing when this guy was basically trying to do the right thing? I mean, it's just like in San Francisco, where I'm sorry, that's wrong. It's like the same thing in Texas, where a guy is feeding the homeless and they're giving him citations. He's feeding the homeless for free. And they're giving him citations because apparently you need a permit for that. But this is the thing I don't get, is the fact that this Ohio pastor was simply doing the right thing, and yet he's being penalized for it. Yet not too long ago, back in Houston during the freeze and the flooding, a certain preacher who had a freaking NBA stadium for a church didn't even open his doors, and he got castrated for it. But nothing else happened. He's like, oh, I just had new carpet in. I can't have the poor and the looted and the displaced in my church. But God bless. I hate that. I hate that because you got churches, and I say it all the time, churches that do political stuff need to be taxed heavily. But I do say churches that do the right thing, even though it may not get publicized or may not get the attention it deserves, those guys to me are the true saints. But imagine the fact that you're just trying to do the right thing, and the city's trying to tell you, oh, well, you can't do that, and they're going to fine you for it. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. On the other hand, you have churches like this, a Colorado pastor who is accused of pocketing nearly $1.3 million in a crypto scheme, a scheme because he created a cryptocurrency through his online church, and his followers ate that up. But basically, the cryptocurrency is worthless. But sat there and told, because this is a fraud scheme, sat there and told his followers the Lord told him to do it. I cannot make that up. It's currently being investigated by the SEC, him and his church. But think about that for a second. You're a man of the cloth. You create a cryptocurrency. And at the same time, that cryptocurrency is worthless. And even more so, your answer to those that you screwed over is that the Lord told me to do it. Those are the churches and people that run the church that should be under the freaking jail. Really should. But moving right along, guys, just a couple more stories before we get to our feel good portion of the show. I keep talking about student loan debt a lot. And for a lot of people who don't realize about student loan debt, there is a reason why it needs to be canceled. And this woman's story is a prime example of it.
Stuckey Bruce earned 3 of her degrees at South Carolina State University, and she'd been paying off student loans for almost 20 years.
It was really crushing because it was such a large debt that I know I incurred, but I thought it was necessary to get the education that I needed so that I can be successful.
She says that debt had prevented her from buying a home well into her 50s, and she still owed more than $263,000 until late 2021, when she was stunned to learn all that debt had been canceled because she works in public service.
I knew my life was going to change at that moment, that my life goes another direction now.
Despite a Supreme Court ruling last year that struck down a larger student debt relief plan, the Biden administration has been rolling out smaller, more targeted programs. So far, the White House says it's erased almost $137 billion for 3.7 million Americans. Announcing today it's wiping out debt for tens of thousands of public sector workers, including teachers, nurses, and firefighters. Still, many Republicans argue it's not fair for people who never went to college or who paid off their debts to subsidize those who didn't. Senator Bill Cassidy says the administration is essentially buying votes during an election year.
But it's not really forgiven. It's transferred. It's transferred to those who paid back their student loans or who decided never to go to college.
Now debt-free, Diane Stuckey Bruce says she's finally been able to build her dream home.
It was the biggest blessing I've ever received in my entire life.
A weight that's now been lifted.
I keep saying it. There's more stories out there like that. I have been saying, and as a person that's under that same bubble of student loan debt, I have been saying that Biden could push forward. But I can see people now. Well, why couldn't he just cancel all student loan debt? Because he did not have a Congress behind him. The Congress behind him did not push forward with his $20,000, $10,000 student loan debt plan. Even knocking off $10,000 or $20,000 to me was weak sauce. I admit that, because Biden took the safe route. Biden could have sat there and did what Elizabeth Warren, where Bernie Sanders were all saying the same thing: eliminate student loan debt for all. Why? Because student loan debt is included in your credit profile, your debt to income ratio. If you have a crap load of student loan debt, it can prevent you from buying a house, from getting a car, from even getting a good job. Because I say this all the time: good jobs look at your credit. And if they determine you're a risk, despite your qualifications, you don't get considered. And I've yet to be told I'm wrong about that. We just sat there and saw a woman who now in her 50s is able to get her dream home. But as you saw, she did the education because, like a lot of us at that time, what we were told growing up: go to college, you'll be able to get a good career, you'll be able to get a good paying job, you'll be able to earn, you'll be able to obtain all these things. Every generation was told this up until a certain point. Now, that changed because we're starting to see jobs out there don't require degrees. Because again, the cost of education is too high. These kids that are coming out are realizing, I don't want to take on a mountain of debt for a possibility of getting a good job. Even those that go in the medical field, doctors will tell you being a doctor is a $500,000 investment. And it doesn't mean that once you do finally get the job that you want in the medical field, that you can start paying off your debt. Because student loans to me are so predatory. They're predatory in how they are, they're predatory in their interest rates, they're predatory in how they're accrued. At the same time, you're stuck with it. And I give it to kids. I give it to kids who have learned from adults and sat there and said, you know what? I'm not taking on debt. I am not going to take on debt that more than likely will be with me for the rest of my life. And this is why I give Biden credit, because he learned. I mean, and keep in mind for also, well, how was he able to do that? Well, because the public relief was not a Biden choice. That's actually been there. That's actually been there for quite a while. The problem is backlog. Folks that have been paying on their debts, paying on their student loan payments for 10 plus years or more, there is a backlog. There is a backlog on that, because supposedly if you pay at least 10 years of your debt off, the rest of it would be considered canceled. At least that was the plan. But as we have seen, when it comes to government departments that aren't departments of defenses, they are woefully underfunded. The backlog is intended to. So what has Biden figured out? Biden has figured out that, hey, I may not be able to cancel all student loan debt, but let me go to the areas where they're supposed to be working and let me make sure they're working. Because that's how that young woman there was able to get out of debt. She was paying on a debt. She was paying on her student loans through the public self-relief program for a number of years. And again, I keep saying this the whole entire time for all those, the argument which kills me, the argument that always kills me. Well, what about those that paid their way through college? What about those that had well-off parents or had inheritances or could sell stuff off or was able to work their way through college? What about them? Are they gonna get their stuff paid back? Is the most ridiculous argument I have ever freaking heard. Let me tell you why I hate that argument. Number one, it's a straw man argument. It's an argument that goes nowhere. It's because, you know why? Let's just go ahead and sit there and say this. They don't want to help people that are less fortunate than them. Because God forbid you were one of the few, you were able to go through college, get your degree, and go out with no debt. Good for you. You're one of the few. But you'll be the same pendejos that'll turn around and argue that a person less fortunate than you, that again tried to go the route that you did, decided to take on debt in hopes of finding a job, wasn't able to find a job. Now they're stuck paying interest and never paying the principal. But because somebody sat there and said, we will cancel your debt, which means that American taxpayers will pay it. Now you have a problem? Because I will say this all the time for those that argue this. You didn't have a problem with the PPP program. You didn't have a problem. You did not have a problem with a paycheck protection program that nearly gave out $800 billion to corporations, people that own corporations, and even those that pretended to be corporations. Nearly $800 billion was put out there. And yet 767, give or take a cent, was forgiven. Think about that. $767 billion, give or take, was forgiven out of $800 billion that was sent out. But alas, who pays for this $667 billion that the government forgave, that these corporations who have money, who have assets, who could have gotten loans, paid them back? Who pays that? We do. But you know what's so funny about it? The outcry for paying back these PPP loans is much smaller than paying back student loans that can be forgiven, which currently sits at $1.77 trillion. We could forgive student loans and we could pay them because you know why? That lifts nearly 250 million Americans plus. By taking away that debt, you've made them become consumers. They can now purchase cars. They can now purchase homes. They can now look for those jobs and be considered for them. You've made that possible, but you don't want to. But yet when it comes to PPP loans that were forgiven, silence. Spare me your selective outrage. That's all I'm saying. But the last story that we got, guys, before we get to our feel-good segment, again, Biden is doing something great. It's just not enough.
To almost everyone at one time or another. You miscalculate how much you think is in your checking account, overdraw it, then you get hit with an overdraft fee. Well, over time, those fees can add up. Just how much? According to data from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, over the last 23 years, look at this number on your screen. Americans paid an estimated $280 billion in overdraft fees.
That's a lot of money. Well, that could all soon change. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau just unveiled a new proposal targeting big banks' overdraft fee practices, hoping to help consumers.
Caleb Silver, editor-in-chief at Investopedia, joins us now for more. Caleb, always great to have you. So tell us what we should know about these proposed changes and what it just means for anybody watching at home.
Yeah, these are what they call junk fees. President Biden hates these fees. He's been on a mission to eliminate these. So what they're proposing, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, are two options for banks. None of them the banks like very much at all. One of them is to make these overdraft loans actually loans, turn them into for-profit credit line loans instead of this fee you're going to get every time you exceed your balance. That would be paid by the borrower over time based on their credit. So that's one of the proposals. The other one is to offer overdraft protection as a courtesy instead of just unrolling you into it. The Consumer Bankers Association, the big lobby for banks, doesn't like either of these proposals. This is going to go through a long, long year of negotiation before anything happens.
So overdraft fees have been around for so long. Why are we seeing this push now?
Yeah, President Biden's been trying to crack down on these fees and other fees charged by credit card companies because they're onerous and they hurt lower income people the most. The overdraft is usually for about $26. That's the average, and it's usually repaid within 3 days. So to get a $30, $35 fee if you've overdrafted $26 seems blatantly unfair, especially for lower income folks that are just trying to get by.
So you kind of touched on this, but like, is this a done deal? Are we going to see the banks push back on this? And if they don't, or if they do, when might people stop getting those fees?
Oh, they're pushing back. They don't like this one bit. So this is going to be in negotiation for the better part of this year. If it goes into effect, one or both of these proposals, you'll see it by October 2025. But the idea is to bring the overdraft fees down from about $30 to somewhere between $3 and $14, depending on the borrower. Not a done deal by any measure. a proposal right now. A lot of negotiation is going to go on this year.
So here's the thing about that. For all those, okay, let me put it this way. I am pretty sure that everybody who's ever had a bank account has seen overdraft fees. And I've always sat there and said this, and I will say this once more. I have never understood how a bank can turn around and sit there and say, oh, you have no money in your account, or you don't have enough money to cover this purchase. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to charge you money for money that you do not have, that you have to pay us back. Wait, what? It makes no sense. And again, banks have made billions off overdraft fees. They have. Banks have made $1 billion of overdraft fees, and now you have the Biden administration that wants to lower it. And that's why I say good idea, bad idea, because it needs to be abolished. I think that overdraft fees should be banned because banks have been getting over on people on that. Because $26, $35, whatever your overdraft fee is, your bank, we all hate them. Some of us even decline the overdraft option at our banks, which is really the only way you can get around that. You don't want overdraft protection at all. I say it on my account. I don't want overdraft protection at all. I don't want you to come back and sit there and say, well, we offer overdraft. Don't want it, because it gives banks a green light to charge you money that you don't have. That to me is that to me is a scam in itself. Now, but banks are going to push back. Why? That's their profit. You just literally sat there and saw it. $280 billion, guys, for banks getting money off of individuals. You can see that with your own eyes. So imagine, if you will, for the simple fact of the matter, what if overdraft fees were banished? Banks would have less profit, yes, but you would also have more money, because that's the tug of war. The tug of war is always going to be between us and banks. If you finance a house, you go through a bank. If you finance a car, you go through a bank. If you have credit cards, guess what? You go through a bank. It's always that tug of war. But for this one battle, Biden can go forward and say, you know what? I want to banish overdraft fees for banks. But again, you need a Congress that can do it. But that's what I'm saying. That's what I said. Him wanting to reduce junk fees is great, but he needs to go farther. Stop being safe. I cannot stress that enough about Biden. Stop being safe and push it. There are plenty of people out there that think the same way you do. That's all I'm saying. But we've gotten to our feel-good segment, guys, because you usually don't have the Frack We Got Here. We usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes it makes use of faith humanity. But hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow is Friday Eve, which is Thursday. And we will leave you guys out with some positive vibes. And one of the positive vibes that we can provide from a librarian and his love of reading, and that he wants to spread it to others.
A new social media star is spreading joy through his love of books and his favorite place, the library. Michael Threets has over 12 million likes on TikTok for his inspirational and positive messages about reading and his wish to make libraries an inclusive and fun place for everyone. And Michael's joining me now for more on that. Michael, thanks so much for being here. You know, not everyone would expect to go viral on social media for talking about the library. So why do you think your message is resonating with so many people?
That's a great question. You know, I never sought out to go viral. I just was trying to push library cards, push library books, remind people of libraries as my cat makes an appearance, knowing that we're talking about the library. You can't be a librarian without a library cat. And I just think that I just try to be as genuine, as authentic as possible, and just show people that the library is for everyone. Everyone belongs in libraries. And I just love them so much that I think that shines through, and people just start seeing like how powerful their local library is, how the best card in your wallet is indeed a library card.
What's the cat's name? He wants to be part of the interview, so we want him included too.
She does. Her name is Kissing Cat Barlow. She's named after the host character by Lewis Sacker.
Of course she is. So Michael, you say the library actually helped you with your mental health struggles. Can you tell me more about that?
Yes, growing up, I was a very shy library kid, very reserved, very quiet, and books were my very first friends. Reading Beverly Cleary Henry Huggins, Ramona and Beezus, reading Louis Sacker's Sideways Stories from Wayside School, reading the Chronicles of Narnia, being a homeschool kid, going to the library every single day, being educated by my mom, having my dad instill a love of reading in me. It was always my safe place, a place that I knew I could be myself, where I felt like I was the me that I'm supposed to be.
Now, you faced some social media backlash recently with someone calling you a series of names, weird, among other things, but you found a way to respond with kindness. Why did you react that way?
I reacted that way because I very recently became aware of how many kids watch the videos that I make, which always shocks me. I'm always shocked whenever people say like, oh, me and my kids watch your videos. We love the library. And so knowing that they may have seen those awful comments, I wanted to make the video showing kindness, showing empathy, and reminding people of who they are. And even the other day, a kid came in the library and said, hey, do you have any tips for young content creators? And I don't want any young kids trying to make videos on social media to face what I had to face. So I wanted to remind them how powerful their voice is, how powerful kindness and empathy are. And I just wanted to give them the best chance to become the best human being that they are and show them how loved they are by libraries, library people, and all sorts of people across the world.
And you have to imagine some of those kids, and maybe even adults watching, are people who sometimes have trouble standing up for themselves in tough situations. So what do you hope people take away from your posts and your message?
I hope people remember that they will always have a space in the library. You don't have to come to the library every single day to be a library user. The library is always going to be there for you. If it's tomorrow, if it's 10 years from now, we're ready for you to come through those doors whenever you're ready. And I hope that people remember that the library is the place where they don't have to feel shame. They don't have to feel embarrassment. They have a friend in books, in the library, in library workers. And I hope they never forget how valued they are by library people, and more importantly, valued by the world for the genuine human being that they are. Once a library kid, always a library kid. The library is always going to be here for each and every one of you.
All right, Michael Threets.
And again, I love that. I love the fact of a gentleman, Mr. Michael Threets himself, shows the joy of a library. And I was the same way as a library kid, still am a library kid. That I found books I love there, not just comics and mangas, but definitely books that I could go on for days about that. But I love the fact that he, much like LeVar Burton, much like many other literal figures out there that are just encouraging kids to read, encouraging kids to go to the library, encouraging kids. There is so many great things out there in the library that you can honestly enjoy, you can escape, you can creativity. I could go on all day, but I love the fact that he's using his platform to say, kids, enjoy reading. Because I know for me growing up, it was mostly Pizza Hut and Domino's getting us to read. And let me tell you something, pizza's a hell of a motivator when you want to read something, because them personal pan pizzas was chef's kiss. Anyway, I do thank you all for watching. Thank you for watching, letting people know that this podcast was live. I certainly appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. I always do want to shout out those that shout me out. So shout out to Vaughn and Big VZA Dot on all social media. You can definitely check out his beat page on YouTube. So if you have an idea for a beat and you want to use him on his services, check him out. Big VZA Dot on all social media. Also, shout out to Navy at BlurredCon Speaks. Shout out to Blurred's Eye View. Shout out to Roomful of Blurs, Geek by Heart, Mayhem Media, Safari TV. Thank you guys for sharing this. I certainly appreciate that as well. And also, guys, before I do get out of here, I do want to talk about Blurred Station. Guys, this is the place for us, by us, for people of color and for blurredness. They have animes, they have mangas, they have TV shows, they have movies in development. I cannot stress this enough, because places like Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, their prices are increasing. Content sometimes disappears and reappears. Why not join Blurred Station? You can join for $10.99 a month. They do have an Affinity membership. Once you're there, guys, just if you'll do me a favor, go to the Blurred's Eye View Affinity membership. You can select any Affinity member there. We would certainly appreciate that. And of course, $10.99 a month. And after 36 months, guys, Blur Station does something that no other media out there does, where you can actually own a bit of Blur Station. Yes, unless you want to, go the hard route, go through Fidelity or E-Trade, pay an assload amount of money to get one share of Netflix or one share of Hulu or one share of Disney Plus. That's up to you. Or 36 months of paying $10.99 and you own a share of Blur Station. Again, it is a place for us, by us. I highly recommend it. But with that being said, guys, you can usually find me on the socials at BlockBox447. I do reviews on almost everything, including gym stuff, because I do a couple push-ups. The link at the bottom, guys, to make that a wee bit bigger for you guys to find me. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, take you to my link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook groups for all my podcasts. How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bitten Off Let's Podcast. Like, share, subscribe. Just don't like and walk off, guys. Share, talk about it, let people know about it. Word of mouth is the greatest tool at our disposal when facing the YouTube and IG algorithms. So again, help me spread the word by also spreading the word to others. It's simply spreading the gospel. That's all I'm asking you to do. But aside from that, guys, again, I cannot stress this enough. We are in a presidential nomination season, which means by November, we got to make a choice in which party is going to go where. Again, not a lot of choice in the Republican side. The Democratic side does have a few, but again, it's been very quiet about that. What I always stress, however, get to know the candidates, get to know where they stand on the issues, and see if they align with your own. I am not just talking about the national level. I'm also talking about the local and state levels as well. Get to know the people that are running your state. Because if you're in Tennessee like I am right now, you're pretty ticked off at Speaker Sexton. I leave it at that. But again, get to know the candidates, see if they align with your views. Or you can do like former Officer Dunn did and run for office. There's plenty of sites out there that will definitely show you how to run for office in your home state. The thing I'm getting at is, guys, be informed, be active. Don't be disenfranchised or disillusioned or put your head in the sand. Nothing changes when there's no action. That is all I'm saying. But the last thing I say about the Frack We Got Here, guys, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel here, guys. We are simply giving you all the information to allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better in society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman as a National Cybersecurity Director. All great things. When we don't learn from history, guys, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old gang in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack We Got Here. Thank you all for watching, guys. I certainly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Please, please take care of yourselves and each other. We'll hopefully get through this. Peace.